A workshop. Look at
There
that.
is a workshop. Yeah.
I think that's a first for us.
Yeah.
So
We
welcome
just got like a whole
everyone.
room of people.
I know.
There's like a
It's like
live viewing.
I know. I kind of feel
Pretty
like
it's pretty
the
cool.
president or something, like addressing my people. I'm just kidding. Welcome everyone. It is February 10th. It is time for EDU Endpoint Office Hours. Um, Excited for today's session. Be open Q&A again, but we have some things to review. Richard, I don't know if you've heard, but the Microsoft Windows and Intune product groups are once again hosting Technical Takeoff in March.
This is news to me, Garrett. News to me.
I figured it was. Um, so if you've been around for a little bit in the space, then a couple of years ago, the product groups have put on a virtual conference, if you will, a bunch of dedicated sessions to kind of the latest and greatest of both Windows and Intune. So they are once again doing that for 2026. This year's a little bit different. In the past, it was a solid week of sessions. This time, they're breaking it out throughout the week, or throughout the month, I should say. I think it's every Monday. And they have a series of sessions for you all to attend. So you only have to take one day off of the week instead of taking an entire week off, but still same amount of content. So you can register at aka.ms/technical takeoff. And I'll actually pull this up really quick so I can show you. This is the landing page. And as you scroll down, you will see, we've got Monday, March 2nd, Monday, March 9th, 16th, which is my wife's birthday actually, and Monday, March 23rd, all the way from 7 a.m. To close to noon. That is Pacific time, I believe. Um,
Really
so
hope it's not Eastern time
I don't think it's Eastern time.
because that'd be
Pretty sure it's not
terrible for
Eastern
us on the
time.
West Coast.
Yeah, like 3 in the morning.
It is Pacific time. It's Pacific
Yeah,
time.
it should be Pacific time. So you can add these to your schedules and get those registered. And again, it's kind of in collaboration with both the Windows and the Intune team. So some are going to be focused on, Windows 11, Windows updates, things like that. And then the Intune side, things like making the most of your Intune data, um, Copilot security, and Intune, all kinds of good stuff. Lots of virtual desktop with Windows 365 and AVD. So definitely encourage you all to check this out. And as we run through this, we'll kind of share the highlights that we pick up on EDU Endpoint Office Hours. Um,
Now Garrett, which of these sessions is the one you're the most interested in attending?
that's a really good question. The one on reporting or making the most of your Intune data, I think that's pretty interesting. Um, let's see. Yeah, that one, and then just the general session. Um, just kind of what's new. Let's talk about Windows and Intune 2026 edition. Um, yeah. How about you?
Putting you on the spot. The one that I'm really looking forward to is transitioning to post-quantum cryptography. That's
When I read that, I thought
yeah,
immediately, I thought of you, and I knew you would
post-quantum.
want. Yeah, yeah.
Post like we're not even at quantum. Like
I didn't even know we were in pre-quantum.
we're going way past quantum now.
Um,
Now there's a lot
for
of cool
real. That's
sessions,
no, no,
a
no,
lot of cool
no.
sessions,
Be for
especially if you're new
real.
to Intune, you haven't done, you haven't been doing this as long as we have. A lot of good things to look at. I think most of these are all 30 minutes. So, and they're all going to be recorded. So if you can't make it
Yep.
any of these days, you'll have all the recordings should be up on YouTube and you'll be able to watch them at 2x speed if you want. So you can get a 30-minute session done in 15 minutes. You can crank these all out. So
That's how you do it, don't you? You just
that's how I
live.
do it. I try not to attend anything live.
What
Just
is
watch it
cool
all
though
recording at
is
2x.
right, this is the product group actually hosting these, so you'll hear from the experts on that side, and sometimes they'll drop hints of what's to come. So Yeah, should be a good time.
Yeah, they're not shy typically of sharing roadmap stuff, so always a good time.
Yeah. Moving on. Richard, do you we haven't even talked about this. Do you have a preference on how we run through these? Do you want me to take the top ones and you the second half, or
Yeah, that's
what
fine.
do you want to do? Okay,
I don't
let's
care.
do that.
Whatever you want to do.
We
Whatever's most
this is
comfortable for you, Garrett.
we are flying by the seat of our pants today. That's okay. So these are some of the highlights. I'll get this as soon as Richard starts talking. I'll go ahead and copy and paste these into the chat for you, so you don't have to follow that too bad, because Richard's terrible at copying and pasting.
Copy and paste. I'm awful at it.
Can't do it.
Can't do it.
So
I need Copilot to do it.
Yeah, we'll run through these for you pretty quick, and then it'll be kind of an open Q&A. So let's jump to that. There was a blog published, probably seen this in your own Intune tenants. 2601 was released. So the blog here just kind of highlights the big features that were in this release. Ironically, at least last I checked, which was about an hour ago, the Intune What's New page, the official documentation was not updated yet, but we do have this blog published. So if you haven't heard the news, PowerShell script installer support for Win32 apps is now there. That allows you to be able to have the command line where you would normally have a command line for a Win32 app. You can now replace that with a PowerShell script, so you can go more in depth with your app deployments on the Windows side. If you have fancy applications that need a lot of hand holding, or if you have other compliance or regulatory rules that you've got to adhere to, PowerShell scripting is going to make a world of difference for you. So that's there. I've gotten some feedback from some customers that it's working really good. I'd love for y'all to throw it in the chat. Yay, nay, how's it going on that if you've tested it out, but I've gotten positive feedback so far. Endpoint privilege management, making a couple of changes on the isolated virtual accounts. So when you are trying to elevate those users, that preserves the current profile, for example, profile paths, environment variables, and personalized settings, we can now control that within the elevation rules policy. So as you build those policies, we can adhere to those conditions. And then with the isolated virtual accounts, the user's identity is maintained throughout the elevation, meaning that the audit trails stay cleaner and compliance records. So that is a huge win. I think I've had a number of customers kind of react to that's going to be beneficial to them. Also, the ability to enforce scope tags for elevation scenarios is there. So that's really big, especially for our higher education customers. That was a kind of a challenge from the scope tags that they wouldn't associate to those rules, and now they are enforced there. So that should help for departmental and other groups within your organization. The last thing I think, well, there's a couple more, but I think the big one here is admin tasks is now G8. So this is where we are consolidating a lot of the notifications that are inside the Intune console. So if you have used multi-admin approval, if you're using MDE or Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, the security tasks displayed inside of Intune, and EPM, all of those notifications now funnel into one location inside of tenant administration on your tenant. And so this is going to bring, even as we move into Security Copilot and getting some of those additional agents in there, like the device offboarding agent, it's all going to funnel into those admin tasks. We have a dedicated blog, which was the next point here, that just highlights all the capabilities of this and kind of create that single pane of glass for you to be able to, react to each of these tasks directly within the portal, kind of that single pane of glass for you. You're not having to jump around the console. So that is GA. It should be in your tenant. It was in preview for a little bit, but it is GA now. And the last thing, Apple enrollment is got now certificate support. So if you are using or I should say we're rolling out the automated certificate management environment, or ACME protocol, for iOS, iPadOS, and macOS enrollments. And this is going to provide a better approach for enrollment of certificate-based enrollments within your environment versus the previous SCEP processes that you had to do. So I think it's a good bit more streamlined. I haven't tested it personally yet, but I'd love for y'all to try this out. If that's a requirement for you all, let us know how that's going. I don't think there's any significant changes on the front end, but we're definitely increasing that, which I think also just showcases our commitment to keeping macOS and all Apple management kind of at the forefront for Intune, which we've historically been a little bit more behind on. And then there's a couple of new setup assistant screens that you can control through the ADE profile. So if you want to skip some of those, now you can, which is always good for end user experiences. Okay, couple other things. I already talked about this blog. Just this admin tasks is now GA'd. There was a support tip blog published by the Intune customer success team about resolving device noncompliance with mobile threat defense partner apps. So if you are using this with Defender for Endpoint, for example, and integrating that into Intune, there are some challenges around the compliance state of the devices based on some changes to this. So this is just a great little tip to help you resolve those compliance issues that may pop up if you're using any of those apps integrated into the console. Again, Defender for Endpoint is a really good example of that. So if you're running into issues with compliance, I think I had one customer reach out earlier about a macOS issue, and I shared this, and we were able to resolve it too. There are also some new sections covering the simplified user remediation for iOS, because this was a previously published blog. So these two sections are newer. So definitely take a look at that if you're running into issues there. And then the last thing, and this is going to kind of be a theme throughout the rest of the session, I imagine, is the secure boot status report. So there was definitely some chatter within the EDU Endpoint office hours chat about the secure boot status report in AutoPatch. So if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, there was a report that was published into the Windows AutoPatch section of the quality updates, and you could view a report that had the secure boot status for all of your devices in your tenant. It was there, then it wasn't there, then it was back, now it's gone again. There's some issues with exporting that we ran into, but just want to inform you all that it is currently documented that this report is not available in the tenant. So hopefully this will be updated and we can report back soon when it will be available again. Thank you for those who were kind of chiming in and helping us figure out what was going on and what the issues were with exporting and different things like that. Just know that it is officially temporarily unavailable, and hopefully it'll come back very, very soon. Richard, any comments on that from your perspective?
Well, the reason it was pulled isn't because of the exporting, but there's other reasons why it was pulled. So it'll come back. It's just getting worked on right now.
Yep. Okay. I think that was it for mine. Richard, do you want me to continue sharing, or?
Yeah, just go ahead and continue sharing since you already got it. I don't have the links up.
Yep. Okay. Go ahead.
NTLM. We're getting rid of NTLM. It's like 30 years old now. So that's going away. Yeah, it's been around for a while. So there's a timeline of when NTLM is going to go out. I don't know. Like the post is fairly in depth about how we're going to be phasing NTLM out. So I just take a look at the post. I don't have much to add to it because NTLM is not. I mean, it's still around in certain instances. Like there are still some places that we see it, but for the most part, we don't spend our days looking at NTLM issues. So, but check that out. Check out that report. What do we have next? Okay, so 26H1. So this is something that's been confusing people since the ADK got released. So there, if you didn't know, there was an ADK that was released back in November that people thought that's the latest ADK. So let's install that ADK. Well, that ADK that came out in November was actually for Windows 11 26H1, but we hadn't announced 26H1 yet. The only official place you would have seen 26H1 was actually in the ADK documentation. And so that build, a lot of people just thought, oh, that's the latest. And so if you do any work with FFUs, people were installing it and telling me, oh, yeah, this doesn't work with FFU. It's like, well, it's because it's not really the latest ADK. If you look at the documentation for the ADK, it tells you it's that version of the ADK is only for 26H1. It's not for any of the other releases. So now we publish actually two ADKs, one for 25H2 and below, and then one for 26H1. And so why are these different? Well, Snapdragon and Qualcomm has released Snapdragon X2 chips, and those were announced at CES. And those processors, any devices that are shipped with the X2 series of processors will be shipping with Windows 11 26H1. And so this blog post goes and explains what 26H1 is, what it's for. For most people, most organizations, this is not going to impact you at all. You don't need to worry about upgrading to 26H1. You're being on 24H2 or 25H2 is perfectly fine. It won't be offered as an in-place upgrade. But what is interesting is that if you do buy 26H1 devices this spring, summer, they will not be offered 26H2 in the fall. So 26H2 will be coming, but you won't actually get that feature update. And that's the middle bullet point there, Garrett, where you won't actually get the next annual feature update. These things will combine at some point where you'll be on the same feature update channel. It's just that because 26H1 and 26H2 are going to be released within the same calendar year, very close together, we just won't combine them now, but they will be combined in a future feature update. So just know that. Some other things just to call out here that we will not support hot patch on 26H1. So if you are using hot patch, that won't be there. However, 26H1 security updates will be manageable through the regular channels that you're used to managing your devices with. So Intune, Auto Patch, Config Manager, all that stuff will still work as expected. So for the most part, no major changes here, nothing to really worry about. But if you are buying any ARM-based Snapdragon X2 devices, then know that you will be running a different version of Windows than everything else. And so with that comes testing and validation that things are working the way you expect them to. I know that you'll have some slight differences in manageability. Again, hot patch doesn't work as an example. So just know that there's going to be some slight differences there. But for the most part, most people, at least most on this call, most likely won't be using those devices, at least not as they're initially released.
Yeah, I would think I would see it onesie twosie across environments versus mass deployments. But
yeah, but the X2 processors look pretty good. They look like they give Apple's what's Apple on now, M5 or something. Like, yeah, looks like they're giving them a run for their money. So looking good. Okay, so we released a blog post. I did not read this whole blog post. Kind of long, but yeah, I had other stuff to do today, Garrett. So didn't have a chance to read the whole thing. But this whole secure boot thing is kind of getting people all freaked out. And I don't think our documentation has made it clear as to what exactly is going to happen when these certificates expire. So I think because of this, we released this blog post to just kind of show how vast this project is, because it's not just Microsoft updating the secure boot certificates. Your OEMs have to do quite a bit of work as well. There's firmware, UEFI updates, BIOS updates, like there's all this stuff that has to go on in the entire ecosystem. And so what this post goes through is explains how Microsoft is coordinating with our device partners. But as you scroll down through here, Garrett.
Yeah, I was just highlighting, like, this is actually comments from Dell, HP, Lenovo.
Right. This is the big thing. What happens when the certs expire? Because some people think Y2K, like things are going to explode and the world's going to end and we're all going to be screwed. It's not the case. Your devices will still boot, first of all. So if and when the 2011 certificates expire and your device does not receive the new secure boot certificates, the PC will continue to function normally. So everyone should understand that the device is still going to work. Existing software will still run. So things won't explode and break and whatever else, like things will still function. However, the device will enter a degraded security state that limits its ability to receive future boot level protections. What this means is that Windows Boot Manager, you will not be able to update Boot Manager. So if that's the case and we don't have the certs, we are running into a security risk, but we aren't in a situation where the devices won't function. They'll still function because the 2011 certificates will still work. The certificate chain is still valid. It's just that the certificates are expired. So we still will function because we're not revoking that 2011 cert. When that 2011 cert gets revoked, then that becomes a problem. And so what this post goes through is it explains that this is what's going to happen when the certs expire, and then what actions do users need to take. In most cases, Windows Update will take care of you. The latest cumulative update, well, I say latest, but we use this term LCU, latest cumulative update. But the update from May of 2025, I think, that has the certificates in it. And the cumulative update is what's responsible for getting the certificates where they need to go. But the challenge is that we don't know if your OEM and your firmware can actually accept the certs and if we can actually make those updates. And so this is why we recommend everyone to check with your OEM, make sure you have the latest firmware updates, so that way Windows can do the update of the certificates for you. Now we understand that this sounds great for things that are managed by Windows Update, and if you're either using Windows Update for Business, which now is just auto patch, if you're using just regular Windows Update, all this stuff should work fine for most client machines. Unless you have something that's super old and the OEM has some issue with the firmware or just it's not getting any firmware updates whatsoever, you need to check with your OEM especially for older hardware or unique hardware. Hardware that might be like it could be a flat panel on a wall that runs Windows. You might need to do something special with those devices. And then also in situations where you have hardware that's air-gapped, where maybe it doesn't talk to Windows Update whatsoever. In those situations, you most likely have some update process where maybe you're installing the Windows updates as necessary. So maybe you have a WSA server that you're using that's installing updates. You'll have the latest cumulative update, which has the certificates. But if you're not updating the firmware on those machines, it's possible that we can't get the updates into UEFI. And if that's the case, then you're going to have to install those updates manually for UEFI and for the BIOS. So in most cases, most people won't have to do a whole lot. So like if you're worried about like mom and dad's computer or grandma and grandpa's computer, as long as they're being managed by Windows Update, we've got the telemetry on the devices. We know what they are. Those devices should be handled. But it's those devices that don't communicate with us, that are sitting some room that's air gapped, some weird device that's just not very common, or just older devices, you're going to have those pockets that will need to, that you might have some different, you might have a different scenario or different use case that you'll have to go through to get those devices up to date.
But I think it's also
so
worth reiterating, right? Like that's part of why we're working so closely with the firmware, the OEMs, to actually get that firmware updated. So you should be able to get those for the
and Garrett, if you click that link right there, actually, Garrett,
this one,
that link right there, it says provided their own guidance. Click on that. This will take you to a support page of ours that lists the OEM pages for Secure Boot. This is in the larger Secure Boot FAQ, sorry, that we've been talking about for a while now. But yeah, Dell has their guidance, HP, Lenovo, Asus, Surface. Even with Surface, we've actually went as far as updated all of the bare metal recovery media with updated media that has the 2023 certificate updates.
So yeah, and we even checked the, okay, that's actually cool.
Yeah, so that recovery media will have it. I think the only thing is like Service Hub 3.
Yeah.
That's the only one that we haven't updated. Well, it's supposed to be updated in January 26th. So,
so they're working
maybe it's up to date and they didn't update the support page yet. But
yeah,
that should be taken care of. So,
but even
so
here,
I wanted
right,
to kind of get out in front of this
like,
because I've seen a lot of things on the internet. I've seen chats and heard things from various people that like this is going to be a complete mess. It's only going to be a mess if there's like a 0-day that comes out on the day that all this stuff expires. That's like a rootkit or a bootkit or something that's going to impact UEFI. And so if someone's kind of lying in wait until that happens, and then now all of a sudden it's like, hey, we've got a bunch of devices that we can't update the secure boot certificates on or whatever, like that's when something would happen, is if there is some sort of 0-day or some security issue there, and if you're caught with your pants down, then you're in trouble. So this is not to say that, hey, don't do this. Yeah, I'm jinxing everyone right now. But so it's still important to make sure that you do get these updates done. And so trying to know what to do, or like which devices are impacted, that's where the Secure Boot report comes in. I've seen, in social media, I've seen places where people have their own GitHub reports and various other things that they've got scripts that they're running to pull some information off their devices. People are pulling things from Event Viewer. There's all sorts of things that are out there that various people have created in the community. We will have the Secure Boot status report at some point when the issues that were discovered are fixed. And it's not so much issues for the data that you see. I think the data itself is fine. There's just some back-end stuff that we've got to kind of take care of before we can fully release the report out. So just bear with us while we get those things fixed. But this stuff will get sorted out shortly, and we should have that taken care of.
And I didn't pull it up, but there's also, if you have additional questions, there's an AMA.
Well, no. You needed to have these questions on February 5th. If you have additional questions, you're...
Oh, I missed it.
Yeah, you're out of luck. So, but I was watching it. It actually is pretty good. It is pretty good.
Okay.
So I would suggest watching, because Garrett, if you click on the YouTube on the bottom, so you can open up in YouTube, bottom right.
Oh. Yep.
And just pause it.
There's a commercial.
And scroll down.
Yeah, it's loading.
Scroll down. And then open the description, or the more. Yeah. So they timestamped each question. Yeah. They timestamped each question with what the question is. So if there's something that is of concern to you and you got a question about something, chances are they've probably answered most scenarios in here. And these were, I don't know if they were live questions, but I think they were questions that were posted to the AMA post when that was originally put up. So they took questions early and then they answered them live on the stream. So
are they going to have another one? Do you know?
What's that?
Are they going to have another?
I don't know. Maybe. Like there were questions about servers and what do I do about Hyper-V? I've got the Hyper-V host. I got my guests. What do I do there? And so they went into a lot of different scenarios, especially the air gap scenarios and stuff like that. So it's a good session to check out.
Okay.
And we will post the links in the chat. Garrett's going to do that.
I was just about to do that. Yep.
There shouldn't be too many others. What else do we have?
That was it. That's all that we've got listed. I did see this blog too published for Azure Virtual Desktop. So for those customers that have a government tenant, maybe you were using it for secure research or something like that, there is AVDs now available in the US Gov Texas for Azure Government. So if you have a secure research facility or some other reason that you would have a government tenant, I don't see this a lot for education customers. But previously we had US Gov Arizona and Virginia, and now there's Texas available for creating your host pools. So if you are closer to Texas or in Texas for latency purposes, now you can deploy AD in US Gov Texas. Just a small update there, and that was it.
Leaf's asking, Can I turn off NTLM now? How would I know if it's used? I'm like, just turn it off. You'll find out. Throw it back on.
Yep, that's exactly it.
Okay, that's actually one of the things in the Secure Boot AMA. Like people were talking about, hey, like I've got Secure Boot off, and then when I turn it on, things don't boot. What do I do? And the guys were like, turn it off. Because you have to go because there's certain things like your OEM will have some guidance for you. Like it's probably like you'll need to update your firmware because there's some things in there that you probably just don't have set up right. Like there's a number of reasons why that could happen. But they were like, well, if it's not working, then just turn it back off again.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. Okay, hold on. I'm getting these links for you.
Yeah, you get the links. There's a question there's some chatter earlier today about Tom had asked, like, we've got Hot Patch, which has a different Windows version number, and then we've got just the regular cumulative update that came out today, because today's Patch Tuesday, if you didn't know. We have no idea what's going to break, so we'll see tomorrow, I guess, what the shakeout of all this is. Because we didn't know at the time, like, the AVD or the Windows app was going to have the issues that it had on Patch Tuesday, so we'll see. But Tom was like, well, Hot Patch has this number, 7781, and then the regular cumulative update is 7840. So what happens with like the Secure Boot stuff? Because 7840 implies it has more Secure Boot updates while the Hot Patch does not. And if we're hot patching, are we missing being added to the next group of devices to move forward? And so the way that the cumulative update works, and you've probably noticed if you've looked through the Secure Boot documentation, it mentions something called CFR, Controlled Feature Rollout. We've used this term not just for Secure Boot, we've actually used this for a while now when we release new features within Windows. So oftentimes, new features will be added to a cumulative update, but they won't be turned on by default. So you might look at update notes and you might say, oh, there's this feature, that's that feature, or whatever. But you install the update and you don't see those features. Well, it's because we haven't rolled them out, and we slowly roll things out really to make sure that we're not breaking anything, like things are working the way that we expect them to. We're looking at telemetry to see that, if things are good, then we'll roll out that feature to more and more devices. But if you want to be on the bleeding edge, then you can turn on CFR. So Control Feature Rollout will turn those features on, or at least it'll make them turn on faster. They may not actually all turn on immediately. We still might be rolling slowly out to those that have CFR turned on, but you're more likely to get added to that feature list by having CFR turned on. And so CFR is good for like testing, kind of like with your update rings. If you're using AutoPatch and you have update rings, like ring 0 would be like IT, ring 1 would be, maybe a small group of users that might run, business critical applications or something like that. So as you have your different update rings, you'll slowly start to increase the population as you test the regular Patch Tuesday updates. Well, CFR can be done in the same way. You can turn CFR on to a small group of people, make sure that the features and everything look good, and then you can slowly expand that out. And then eventually, the users will get those features once we've deemed that the features are all in a good place. So a secure boot, we're using CFR in a very similar way. If you turn CFR on, you will actually get the secure, your devices will be added to the list of, like thumbs up, like, yeah, these devices we know are good. And those secure boot updates, we can put the certificates into UEFI, and we know that we put them in the active database, and things are going to be good because we validated and we've tested these devices. If you're not in CFR, that doesn't mean that you won't get the secure boot updates. In fact, remember, going back to last February, those updates are already in, last May, 5B, so last May 25, that's when we put the certificates into the latest cumulative update. So the certs are already there. If you're installing the latest cumulative updates, then you've got the certificates. But now it's a matter of, okay, can you get added to the list? Are your devices added to the list so we can automatically add the secure boot certificates to the machine? And so if you opt into CFR, then you're more likely to be added sooner rather than later. And so how does this relate to Hot Patch? So with Hot Patch, I still think there's some misconceptions out there, and I've said this multiple times on this call, that Hot Patch is only for security updates. It's not meant for non-security updates. So how we do updates is you have Patch Tuesday, which is today. Today is the B week. So the second week of the month is 2B. So because today's February, so the month is 2, and B is the week of the release. So 1B would have been the second week of January, 2B is the second week of February. So we're on the B week right now. 2 weeks from now would be the D week. The D week is the non-security updates that we release. The non-security updates, think of the D week as a preview of the following month. So when 2D comes out in 2 weeks, which would be, the 24th? When the 24th hits, or somewhere around there, it's not always on Tuesday. It could be Thursday. I've seen some of the days are usually a little different, so it's not always going to be on that Tuesday, but it will be that week. So it should be either the 24th or sometime after that. On that D week, we will release a cumulative update with just the non-security updates for the next month. And that's all cumulative. So you'll have those updates, you can install those, you can test them out, and it's really designed for you to test those updates, make sure there aren't any issues. And if everything looks good, we don't plan to touch those non-security updates in the B week for the following month. The following month, what we will do is we'll add the security updates to that. And that's how we get Patch Tuesday to have both non-security and security updates all in one. So what Hot Patch does is Hot Patch just says, hey, we're not going to put those non-security updates in there. We're only going to include the security updates. And this is why Hot Patch, when you look at the payload, it's much smaller, installs much faster, and there's no reboot that's required. So how do we get those non-security updates? Well, you got them in January because January was a baseline month. February, not a baseline month. So Hot Patch will install, no reboot, you just only get security updates. This is why we have different version numbers, by the way, because you're on a different train. So February, no reboot. March, no reboot. April will be a reboot. That's a baseline month. So now we get all those non-security updates, those D week updates from January. January D week, 4th week in January, 4th week in February, 4th week in March. We take all of that, combine it into one big thing. That's going to be your LCU. That's the normal latest cumulative update that you would have for that Patch Tuesday in April. So you're going to get that big update then, and then you're going to have to reboot. So that would be when, for the secure boot list, that's when I'm expecting that update to happen. I don't think the Hot Patch updates would get that, but you would get that in April. So if you don't want that though, so because I don't think auto, yeah, I don't think hot patch is good for everyone, because you miss out on a lot of a lot of quality updates that might actually help your end users. For instance, if there are bugs in software that are fixed by those non-security updates, your end users aren't going to get those updates. Like if there was something that was fixed today, or the D week from January, but you were rolling it out today, if there was something that was fixed today and you're only using hot patch, well, your end users won't actually see that fix until April, because that's when you're going to install that baseline update. So you have to balance the annoyance of reboots, because people don't reboot, they don't like rebooting. But in order to get these non-security updates and security updates to install, we need to at least reboot once a month. So you have to balance, do I want to annoy my users and reboot, or do I want to just install the hot patches? But if I do that, I'm only going to get quality updates 4 times a year. And if that's the case and you're okay with that, and they don't need those fixes, then that's fine. But you have to make that determination. I wouldn't say enroll everything into hot patch, just like I wouldn't say everything should go with the latest QNAP updates. So this is why you're going to see different version numbers, and why things are going to be a little different if you're using hot patch versus if you're not using hot patch.
So then if you remove the policy, do the devices go back to not hot patching?
I don't know. I haven't done it, so I'm not sure if, because they need to install the latest QNAP update. Once you install, like if you were to manually install the LCU this week and you're on hot patch, you're off the train now, because you're going to be, instead of being on 7781, which is hot patch, you will now be on 7840. So you're ahead of hot patch. And so at that point, now you're going to install the latest QNAP update for March next month, and then April you'll install the LCU. But if you have the hot patch policy applied to you, then you'll now start going hot patch. So you'll come off the train temporarily, and then you'll jump right back on if the hot patch policy is applied. So my expectation is that if you're off of hot patch, you may not get the LCU right away. I don't know what the timing is, if you'll get the LCU now, because if I go off hot patch and I scan against Windows Update, Windows Update's going to tell me, oh, you're on 7781, but you should be on 7840 based on the channel that you're now in, because you're not on hot patch anymore. So now you're on, so if you should be on just the regular current channel, you should be on 7840. Therefore, I'm going to offer you the update. That's my expectation when the next scan, takes place. So this is why we have to have different version numbers, so that way we can keep the timelines, if you will, because we're on two different timelines with these things. So hope
that was your crash course on hot patch and Windows Update release cycles.
And we've lost like 10 people since I started talking. So that's great. Well, it's recorded, really, so if you want to come back and watch it, you really need it.
Technical Takeoff. Who needs that? We got Richard.
Who needs that? Yeah, you'll get me 15 minutes just talking to you.
Matthew's comment, it would be nice if we could force devices off the train for one patch in cases where a bug fix is needed, but leave everyone on hot patch otherwise.
Well, that's kind of what I just described, right? Where if you're on hot patch, but you know that there's a bug that's breaking something, you can install the latest QNAP update for them. And then they'll be on
temporarily,
they'll be on that train though, until after the next baseline.
Yeah.
So, and then once
but you would have to do it manually.
Right. Well, you could, like I said, if you want to remove the hot patch policy, my expectation, I haven't tested this, so, but I'm pretty sure the way that it would work is that you get off the train, and then you scan against Woo, and Woo says, hey, there's an update newer than what you have, install it, and then. There actually is a flow chart, I think, somewhere in
I thought so too, but I couldn't find it. I thought I'd seen one though.
Did you use Copilot?
No. I will.
Well, if you said you did and you couldn't find it, then I'd be okay. But now you say you didn't, so whatever you didn't do the opposite, and maybe you'll
Okay,
find it.
okay, got it. Are you saying if I did use Copilot and I still didn't find it, just go look for it manually?
Just go manually look for it. If you manually look for it, then just go use Copilot and maybe it'll find it. It's getting better. That's all I can say.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay.
All right.
I
what
need
else?
crayons to draw this out. Okay, so there was a question from Jonathan earlier about making a statement that there have been several broken Intune Graph API endpoints that he's come across that we really want to use as documented, but they just don't work. Is there a better way to submit those to the Intune team rather than just opening a support ticket? The last one we did that for, they're saying that it will be fixed in the February update, so I'm hopeful, but if possible, I'd like to spend our support hours on other things. I don't know how our billing and
yeah, so
go ahead.
You don't, if you open a bug, or I'm sorry, if you open a case through the Intune portal, it doesn't decrement any hours or anything from your support contract. So there's no charge to do that. And I know how support is, but the best way to get any sort of visibility on this is through a support case. It's kind of like Reddit. It's like a thumbs up or an upvote. That's the best way to just get some visibility onto this. I'm not personally aware of any Graph API endpoints that are busted. I would say, well, I would ask, are we using the beta or are we using the V1 endpoints to see, if there's some issue there. But yeah, the best way to do that is to open a support case, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was going to say, go ahead and open a support ticket, but do it through the portal. You don't necessarily have to use your unified hours if you're paying for that, because anything cloud specific shouldn't decrement against your support hours. That would only be on-prem. So if you had an issue with CM or something like that. There is the feedback portal as well, the Intune feedback portal. I don't know if you'll get a faster response. I really think that the support ticket's going to get you the best and fastest response.
Okay, Leaf asked, how does BitLocker like the BIOS update? You tell me, because so the OEM, what's supposed to happen when you do a BIOS update through any OEM really is, if BitLocker is on, it should suspend the BitLocker protection, install the update, and then re-enable BitLocker. So in most cases, BIOS updates, UEFI updates, all those things should operate fine regardless of whether BitLocker is on or not. Let's see.
I think that's all the questions that have come in. Anything else?
No, that all looks good.
Hey guys, I had one quick question. My question got buried back before, but
go for it.
So for older, so we have a bunch of devices that are using the Windows 10 ESU because they can't be upgraded to Windows 11, and we didn't have the budget to replace all those devices. Now most of those are HP, and I was just looking at the list there for the secure boot. Looks like they mention all of those as being too old, that they don't support them anymore, so there won't be a BIOS update for those devices. So in that case, as far as the secure boot certificates are concerned, are we just kind of out of luck on those?
Did they mention specifically that they won't take the 2023 certificate?
Well, it just said that they'll have a list of all the different devices that have BIOS updates to address that, and they said devices that are, manufactured before 2017 are no longer supported and won't be issued any BIOS updates. So it doesn't necessarily say anything about the certificate, like whether or not it will support it at all, but I'm assuming that it means they, they won't be getting any updates that are required in order to use it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what will happen for those devices. What it may be that you don't need a BIOS update or a UEFI update, and the certs will apply. I just don't know because this is all OEM specific. So if the OEM is telling you that the certs won't apply, that's one thing. But if they're just saying that we won't provide BIOS updates, it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't get that the certificates won't apply. Like the cert, there could just be that there's no additional work that's needed, and the certificates can be updated.
Yeah, that page had it broken out,
yeah.
so they had the most recent ones. You know, anything that was any devices that were manufactured from this date will already have the certs included. And then these are the other ones, like from this date to this date will need a BIOS update. Here's the, here's the links to all the different individual BIOS updates for those models. And then finally they have, anything older than this is no longer supported. And then just just kind of leaves it at that. So
yeah, so and it's probably just because they don't either want to or they can't test everything, so they won't go back that far and try those devices out. Mm-hmm. So it's possible that the certs do update. They just have no plans to go and test anything that's that old. So it's possible that things work. Now, again, what I said earlier at the beginning is like these devices will still boot, right? But you are running at this point, 9-year-old device if it's 2017. So they are getting fairly long in the tooth. And so it's, as we are in education, we do know that sometimes we hold on to devices a lot longer than OEMs expect us to. Yeah, the only risk you're running by not having the certificates there is that you do run risks of rootkits, bootkits, anything that could hit UEFI or the boot chain. That's where you run into the biggest risk.
I think so.
David was asking, anyone set up Microsoft Connected Cache yet? I think a lot of you have. So Dan, thanks for sharing your screenshot yet, but feel free. David, if you have specific questions, I know most folks in the community are willing to share their experience, so feel free to reach out and get more specific data on that. And then Tom has another question. I would love to get some clarity on what level of telemetry we need to help get devices to report in for Windows updates and avoid the device diagnostic data not received error. Isn't that one just the Windows data policy in Intune? I don't know that there's different levels that you can configure for that.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that you need to have it at least required. I don't have the docs in front of me, but I think it's required for the telemetry level, which is pretty much, it's like basic. It's like very low level. Yeah.
And that's in the Intune console. If you go to tenant administration under connectors and tokens under Windows data, that should be all you need.
Yeah, you just don't want to turn it off. Well, not this, but there's also telemetry. This is just saying that, yeah, we want to turn diagnostic processing on. But then there's, like Tom mentioned,
the extra
the telemetry layer. Level, basic,
I got it.
And full.
Okay, yeah.
So basic now is required.
Yes.
We call it required now. And so required is just like, again, very, very limited telemetry that's sent back. But customers do turn it off as well. And so if you are turning off telemetry, then that's where you can run into issues where Windows Update for Business reporting data doesn't show up. But basic / required, that's what you're going to want.
Yeah, I think it's basic. You don't need to do full unless you want to. Let's see.
I
Like I'm
just
getting
wondered.
lost. Go for it.
I just wanted to just check real quick because with the secure boot, it really sounds very, very simple now. About a year ago on the documentation, it had all the different phases listed. I think it was like 4 or 5 phases, and then we had bloggers that were given these task providing suggested task sequences just available for us to use in CM that looked like it was going to require like 3 or 4 reboots. Um, and now it just seems like now it just seems like it's so easy. It's going to be such an easy task. I don't know if it's just a misunderstanding. So is it really going to be as easy as it seems right now based on the documentation?
For most people, it will be. But where I think a lot of people, especially a lot of config manager admins, are coming from, especially if you're doing OSD, this is where things get a little challenging, and it's really around boot media. So most boot media boots with that 2011 certificate. And so if you've updated, if the machine that you are using to, like if the machine that you were imaging gets a 2011 certificate, but the machine that you're imaging does not trust that certificate, then you can't boot. So over the past year or two, you've probably seen a lot of bloggers and a lot of things on social media about, hey, we've got issues booting. And a lot of this goes back to Black Lotus, I think was the issue that we had where we had to update the secure boot media or the secure boot. There's secure boot vulnerabilities that we had to address, and a lot of people addressed those vulnerabilities. And there's an option when, like, if you only want to trust the 2023 certificate, and you want to put the 2011 certificate in the DBX, or if you want to revoke the certificate, which is putting it into the DBX, if you do that, then you're only trusting the 2023 cert. And if you're only trusting the 2023 cert, anything that boots off of 2011 media won't work. So if we go back to what we talked about with Surface earlier, the reason Surface is updating all of the boot media for its bare metal recovery images is because of customers that are revoking the 2011 certificates. So we don't plan on automatically revoking that 2011 cert. So you'll have a 2023 and a 2011 certificate that can be booted against. And so because of that, you will be able to use older media to boot. But at some point, that 2011 certificate will need to be revoked. It's not going to be anytime soon, but it will have to happen someday. And so this is why the things are happening in phases. And that's why it sounds complicated. And it still is complicated. I wouldn't say that this is easy, but I think for most people, like I said, our parents, grandparents, people that aren't technically savvy, like they don't have to worry about this stuff. But I've got boot media. I'm using config manager to re-image things. I've got even Windows recovery environments, like the WinRE image has a certificate in it as well. And so those have to be updated too. And so that it is complex, but it's not like the sky is falling, like our devices won't boot after these certs expire. And I think that's the one thing I want people to take away from today is that, yes, this is complicated, this is a challenge, but it's not like your devices won't function. They still will function. But there is work that you will have to do to make sure that the certificates are updated. So.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yep. Yeah, and Todd put in here in Config Manager, they just updated the boot WIM to address this in Config Manager 2509, where you can use the bootloader that's signed with Windows UEFI CA 2023. So, yeah. So if your device has been updated already to accept 2023, and now you have media that includes 2023, then that stuff will work just fine. And if you know all the media that you're going to boot against is 2023, then you can revoke. You can put the 2011 cert in the DBX and say, okay, I'm done with that. If you wanted to do that, there's a registry value you have to set in order to do it. but you can revoke the 2011 cert if you know that nothing else on that device is going to use that cert. But most people don't know that. They haven't went through and evaluated their entire environment to know if I need that 2011 cert yet or still or not. And so that's why we're not going to automatically revoke that 2011 cert for quite some time. I don't have an exact date on when that's going to happen. All right. Well, I know we're over a couple minutes.
Yeah, we are over.
Yep.
Great discussion. Thanks as always for staying with us. Well, we will meet again February 24th. Until then, have a great week. Thanks again, Richard. Awesome job.
Thanks,
All
folks.
right, we'll see you guys
later. Bye.
Bye.